Preservation is a revolutionary act.
Since we've submitted the proposal, everyone keeps telling us how the limited access African American students have to really learning about historic preservation. I think part of the role of this grant, part of the role of this project, is to just generally increase the awareness of African American students about the discipline.
Our people really wanted an education for their children. And that's why I'm so happy when I see you all out there working so hard. I'm very, very proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
My name's Milan Jordan, and I'm director of the HOPE Crew. And HOPE Crew is an acronym that stands for Hands-On Preservation Experience. The National Trust created this initiative to give people experience in the preservation trades because there was an extreme shortage in preservation trades skilled labor. Our HBCU digital documentation fellowships are powered by the Action Fund and act as an extension of the work to sustain HBCUs into the future. The first year of the digital documentation fellowship was a partnership with 3 HBCUs, Prairie View A&M University, Tuskegee University, and Florida A&M University.
Hello, my name is Joshua Francis. I'm a 4th-year architecture major. So my project in the fellowship was to find and research 3 different historically black burial grounds and then tell their story and ultimately choose a preservation experience for one of them. I ended up going with the Plantation Cemetery at Benton Hill, the newly founded New Hope Cemetery, and Old City Cemetery.
So Old City Cemetery is located just outside of the historic boundaries of downtown Tallahassee. So when the cemetery was founded in 1829, it was literally across the street and just immediately outside the city limits. And in the first 11 years of its history, it was the public burying ground. It was open, vacant federal land, and families from town came out and staked their claim for their family burial plots. Matt Lutz is basically the staff of Old City Cemetery. He's the staff leader for the city clerk's office and the Tallahassee government. His job is to basically deal with records management of the site and as well as taking care of the site. So he got trained in cleaning the headstones, and that's why he was able to help us with the project. The decision to go with Old City Cemetery started with my meeting with Matt, just to because we were having interviews with everyone from each cemetery or burial ground. So we were walking and talking, and I just happened to notice like a lot of the headstones are smaller. So my project addressed cleaning the headstones and trying to get them in shape for what little
headstones that's there.
In developing and sketching out this digital documentation fellowship, I think we really underestimated the role the faculty were going to play in this. They helped us find the projects, they helped us with the curriculum, they helped steward the students through the program. They were really mentors in their own right throughout this.
I thought that Josh would be a perfect fit for the project. He was in a class of mine in the spring. He's been working here at the school, and I thought that he would have the leadership skills to pull together a team and could work independently. I think his cemetery project is important. It's a situation, it's an issue, it's a challenge that isn't specific to Tallahassee. It's a national issue, and I think it's also important for the students to realize that cemeteries are examples of architecture, that parks are public spaces. Architects are involved in the design of these public spaces, so we should also be involved in the maintenance of them. And by them understanding the environmental impacts on these headstones and these sites of memory, hopefully they'll be better designers in the future.
We're in Old City Cemetery because it was a spot that I picked. So I picked this spot just because of the history of it, with it being Tallahassee's oldest public cemetery. And it's by law segregated. Right now it's full, so it's not the law anymore. But up until the point where it was full, it was segregated. So right now we're working on the historically black side, and then tomorrow we'll do some GIS mapping on the historically white side up in that corner back there. This fellowship definitely shifted my thoughts on historic preservation, because before I'll probably say I never really thought about historic preservation like that. It opened my eyes just for the different methods to preserve something. It doesn't always have to be hands-on in the dirt. It doesn't always have to be digital documentation. Talking to people and learning about a space can be preserving that space.
The Hope Crew Fellowship, I think it's a great opportunity for our students, and not just the 2 students that are on the fellowship that are leading the project, but also all the students that are helping. I think for Joshua and Cornelius, it's a chance for them to practice their leadership skills. They not only have to finish the project, they have to organize the helpers. So it's a chance for them to demonstrate ability to be a team leader. I think though for all the other students, it's been a great opportunity to get increased introduction to what is historic preservation and really begin to understand the tools, resources, and how it really should be a part of every undergraduate architecture education.
Just connecting to where I'm from, St. Croix, to the burial tactics and burial, the ways they go about mourning and burial in Tallahassee. It's kind of different, but also a lot similar. In St. Croix, just the graves itself are different. It's more of that bed shape and structure. Going to St. Croix is not my first time cleaning a grave. I usually go every month to clean my mom's grave. So I can now put together that methods and stuff that I learned from Hope Crew and from this project to cleaning my mom's grave.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be explaining the back history of the John G. Riley house, why John G. Riley himself is important in covering his house, I chose the John G. Riley House for its historical significance to education and community. As for John G. Riley himself, he was a very prominent figure, and we'll get to that on the next slide.
Cornelius was also in a class I taught last spring. Probably I've known Cornelius for years. What stood out for Cornelius for me always is he started at FAMU Architecture when he was in high school. He was one of these 11th, 12th graders that actually dual enroll and take a college class, but he naturally fit in. I think most of the faculty didn't know he was a high school kid in architecture classes at that time. I've watched him as he moves through our program. He's a local kid, which is great. So I think focusing on local sites of African-American history like the Riley House, they matter a little more to him than other student from Orlando, Miami who just picked a site. I think also the idea of the technology is important. We need to help our students know that this tech is not just limited to STEM, but it's also a way of archiving history and documenting historic sites.
Working with Cornelius was such a unique experience. Knowing that he was a local kid from Tallahassee who'd worked so hard to get ahead and to get into the architecture program, to even having his parents on site as he led his classmates was just such an amazing moment for him as a young adult.
He was one of the first certified black teachers in the state of Florida. Also, he provided housing for most of the low-income black people in Tallahassee.
It's actually really stunning when you see it during processing. So the color is a fantastic for a preservation project like this because you're really going to see and understand everything in detail. The grayscale scanning is slightly less detailed. Just without the color, sometimes you can't make out things from a distance. So a house like this, what I would do is I'd start back because we want to capture the roof lines, any features on the roof, and anything that you need a line of sight from a far away distance to capture.
Machines that we've used in class, that I personally scanned the entire Truth Hall,
Yep.
and that took me around 120.
In terms of Cornelius's project, I think it was important as a great site for other students to plug in. We have a number of historic sites like the Riley House that need to be documented. I think what his work will start to do is serve as a lab for the students to learn the use of the scanner, the drones, how to develop those digital tools, and then they can plug into the campus project we got funded for.
Florida A&M University and Tuskegee University are also recipients of the African American Cultural Heritage Fund's Campus Stewardship Grant. When Hope Crew partners with architecture programs, we're really looking to create more preservation-minded future architects. So this was never a model where we were looking to create new tradespeople who were going to go directly into the field of preservation trades. We just wanted architects who understood history and preservation better.
I think the way Dr. Park sees it is the current elective, Cornelius's current project, is just a step toward getting more and more students plugged into the campus grant.
I think this experience allow our student body and the students to serve not only the architecture students, but also the community at the same time. So they could help survey the historic buildings, historic structures. So I hope that they start thinking about and looking around the neighborhood and thinking about how they can serve the community with what they can do right now. Ultimately, this makes a difference in our society.
It's important to accurately document a historic building like the John G. Riley House to provide any assistance in any repairs or rehab or reconstruction of a house like this, just to make sure it's accurate to the time period before it was maybe destroyed.
For the students to enter those spaces after they've done so much research about the lives of the people that either were buried there or lived in these houses or went to these schools, you see that connection happen. So not just to the building itself, but to the history that building tells.
It feels amazing to see how my research and training has come together this week for the students and the community around it, just to see that people still care about these old buildings and these historic sites. This allows the community to remember and keep moving forward and succeeding where they stopped. Histories really shouldn't be lost because it really provides us with a sense of direction and a sense of progress of how far we've come. As I was cleaning John Riley's headstone the other day, I really felt really gracious to continue the legacy of his life's work through education of other students in how to preserve things like his house.
Hi, I'm LaTavia Latham. I'm a grad student at Prairie View A&M University studying architecture. The reason I chose the Whitechapel Cemetery because going to Prairie View, we kind of don't know really much about the cemetery that's on campus, and I feel that since this fall project is going to bring more students from Prairie View, this will give them a better understanding about what is actually going on in the cemetery and the history of the cemetery. Being from Chicago, I kind of just seen a lot of the tall buildings and the different designs within the building, so that kind of just made me be more interested within architecture. And then I took a architecture class in high school, and that kind of just confirmed my interest in it, and then I'm here now.
So I'm kicking off talking a little bit about the trust and some of the initiatives we have that benefit HBCUs, but the larger purpose of the orientation is to help contextualize the project that LaTavia conceived of and that you guys will be working on over the next 3 months or so. So you'll hear about her project, fabrication, Black burial grounds, and Hope Crew and the National Trust as well too.
I'm just going to give you a brief description of the Whitechapel Cemetery that's located on our campus. Through oral tradition, Kirby set aside land as a burial site for the enslaved from both Alta Vista and the Leandro plantation owned by his cousin. In 1876, the Texas governor arranged a commission to establish an agriculture school with a budget of $20,000. With that $20,000, my project that I'm doing for the cemetery is cemetery signage. It's going to include a site plan, and also it's going to include some history about the cemetery on it. And we also are planning on doing a website to give students more information about the cemetery, and also some mapping details and things I just did over the summer with Hope Crew.
LaTavia's project narrows in on possibly one of the oldest sites on campus, which is the cemetery and the unmarked burial ground area. LaTavia developed a project scope that would include 12 cohorts from the School of Architecture. Those students will work in teams of 2 to design park-like signage that demarcates the sacredness of the site or helps bring memorial to the site in some way.
So what's going on today is that we're here at the Whitechapel Cemetery that is adjacent to the Prairie View's campus. This is a known cemetery for descendants of the Alta Vista plantation, as well as Prairie View A&M in its early conception. We're taking a site visit today just to get the students familiar with the space that we'll be working in and representing in the signage that we'll be creating.
With this project, I get to actually see my project come to life, especially once we get approval to make it permanent on the cemetery. I feel like that would be a great opportunity for not only me, but for also the students that's on campus.
Working with LaTavia was really special. You really saw her blossom and bloom in the time that we were together. She was very timid and quiet and said that she didn't like to network or speak to people in the beginning. She didn't see herself as a leader. To the growth that we saw throughout this fellowship. At the end, she was taking command, she was leading people, she was making her opinions known, and she really brought this project full circle.
There's been some previous research done, but all of the documentation and archives here have really been in dusty boxes, and everything has been passed down through word of mouth. And so there could potentially be up to 1,000 people buried in this area. It's a beautiful area along the creek, but there are only a few headstones that remain, and over the years, even in recent years, those have been broken.
The fabrication process that we're embarking on will consist of a 5-part workshop where I take the students through conception to full-scale prototyping. Part of what I'll teach them is designing in 3 dimension in the actual Fusion 360 software, which is one of the top CNC kind of all-around manufacturing softwares that's the industry standard.
We wanted to do something that was very sensitive to the site. We really didn't want to do something that was going to make it stand out too much, because then again, it is a historic burial ground. The place where I want to locate my proposed signage would be towards the front of the entryway. There's 2 entryways, but I want to do it down this road because this is like the main street that everyone drives. I want to put it towards the front
LaTavia was the
also.
perfect person for this fellowship. She had asked the question that a lot of my students ask in studio, which is, how do we design something contemporary that appeals to our aesthetic, but also respect the past and the history of the architecture of the past? That's important.
Working with Hope Crew has actually brought a lot of light to me, because I wasn't really fascinated in working with preservation or with like burial grounds or like cemeteries. And I feel like this is actually important, because we always was taught in class about different things the slaves went through, and I just feel like being here, it kind of just make me feel kind of what I've been learning all my life.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Payne. I'm a recent graduate from Prairie View A&M University, and I study digital media arts. The process of our fellowship, we had to first do our historical research paper, which was my favorite part. Not necessarily the writing of the paper, but the research is really great. And then we did have to come up with our scope of work and our budgeting process as well. Just so like, hey, so if we do put this plan into action, how are we going to do that? For the branding book, I do believe I put the start date. Let me look at the calendar. I said September 12th.
Okay, great. And I know you shared it, I just didn't remember. Thank you for sharing this. Okay.
Yes, and I would say the cemetery cleanup would be, I did believe I say October.
Olivewood Cemetery is the first incorporated cemetery for African Americans in the Houston area. Her project has led to some beautiful research and work with the site owners, the friends or the descendants of Olivewood, and their work will create a logo, a color scheme representative of the site for them.
Well, I believe this experience provided the students with another opportunity to see how the design work they do can affect different organizations and have an impact on their community. And I always tell them it's wonderful when you design something and you actually walk around town and you see it. Or you see it on a television screen, or you see it on a flyer or a poster. It just makes you feel like the work you do is valued and it means something.
So for today, we will be having an official meeting with Miss Margot here and Miss Jasmine today. They are they'll work for the Descendants of Olivewood. So Miss Margot is one of the founders of the Descendants of Olivewood, the nonprofit organization, and she owns the cemetery along with Mr. Charles Cook. He's not in right now, but Miss Margot, he'll be our talking representative. And we'll be talking about the project I've developed for y'all, which will be a branding book for the cemetery. It does not have to be So they found Olivewood in the condition of it was really covered in vegetation, trees, tall grass, weeds, all that. And what they have since the early 2000s till now is they cleaned up a lot of it. And they haven't had help from the government or anything like that. They've been just doing it by themselves for a very long time.
An opportunity like this to work with a historic site, I think it gives students a good lesson in history, a good lesson to see where we've come from, what our people did to survive, how they honored not only the living, but how they honored the dead. You know, came to this area and built a life that has kind of sustained them until now?
When I first stepped on the grounds of Olivewood, it was really overwhelming due to the fact that these people here, I didn't even know that they were here. You know, and this is like a historical Black cemetery. And I was like, wow, like a little part of me wishes that I was born back then so I can get to know them. Because most of the people buried, they're like teachers, lawyers, doctors. Some of them are Freemasons. Some of them really built Houston. And I would love to like get to know each and every single one of them and bring their story like to the light.
We knew Gabby was a superstar from the beginning. We're truly honored and humbled that she attributes her current job role and her current career growth to having been a part of this fellowship.
I'm about to start my meeting for the Olivewood branding book, the final presentation with the students. Quite nervous, but I think it'll go well. We'll just see how this goes.
Thank you guys so much. As Miss Jasmine had said earlier, this is hard. It's hard to decide which one.
This is what keeps Olivewood alive. It takes your living community and all of their investments, whether it's time, whether it's labor, whether it's creativity, it all helps to, keep the memory of the people that are buried there alive, and it helps us protect them as people.
When everybody comes out after they visited our website, that's the first thing they're looking for is that angel. So I think the one with the angel would be the one.
But I think for me, if it was up to me, I think Alexis would end up taking it. It was just a marriage of like all of these things that kind of came together.
I enjoy working on this project, especially working with Gabby, because all the work that she has produced throughout last year, which really amazed me, and going into Olivewood and actually visiting the cemetery was very, very helpful in creating the brand book, and her being open to everyone's ideas and designs was very helpful.
Alrighty, it looks like Miss Alexis is our winner of the branding book. Congratulations.
We're getting older, but you guys are our future. And so you'll be around to tell the stories. We have to keep them with Olivewood on their minds. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, so that concludes our final presentation today for Olivewood. Thank you so much. And y'all have a nice one. That was a good meeting. That was a great meeting. Just finished it. I love every part of it. Seeing everybody's work and seeing, how happy and made the people at Olivewood be was really nice. I think it went really well. And I know everyone's excited about, having the opportunity to do this for Olivewood, do something that's important to a site that they didn't even know was there. I thought it was really, really great.
My name is Jordan Lamar. I'm a fourth-year architect major here at Tuskegee University. I came to Tuskegee because of architecture. I always had a love for design of buildings. When I was younger, I used to go with my uncle. We look at houses, and when I walk in, they're looking at the size of space, thinking like, okay, I can put this over here, but I was looking at the crown molding, the type of material that was used inside the houses, and that always fascinated me, so that's why I came to Tuskegee.
Jordan is really just an amazing student. When he came in freshman year, I was his faculty for design studio. So to see his growth in taking on historic preservation, he has a knack for working with his hands.
I love working with my hands. It means a lot to me to know that I can have a vision in my head, and then I can put my hands on certain things and bring that vision to life. Favorite part of the Hope Crew Fellowship this summer was creating the historic narrative, because doing the research, I really got into understanding the Armstrong School, the reason behind it for real. Just talking about it now, I was getting the chills in my body just thinking about it. It showed really how the community came together to reach a collective end goal.
We were really looking to expose the students to a number of hands-on learning experiences as well as documentation and storytelling technologies. Everything from GIS mapping, laser scanning, geotagging, the technologies that you need to tell today's stories about the past.
Jordan, I got to work alongside him as his mentor on this project. We had a lot of one-on-one sessions talking about the site, and I could see enthusiasm shift once he did his research, but once he entered the site, he went to the site and he talked with Miss Woody, the site representative, and walked the grounds and talked about how his project is going to benefit them. The level of excitement that I saw he brought to the project after having that engagement with her and with the site was really cool to see. And just knowing that all of the students in their own way are getting to experience that.
My name is Dorothy. I'm Dorothy Mapson Woody. Several years ago, I met Dr. Daniels up in Huntsville, Alabama, and of course we went out in the country, and there was a church with a little cemetery and a little schoolhouse. And it was a beautiful schoolhouse, and it looked so much like our schoolhouse. And I had some pictures, and I said, guess what? I have a schoolhouse down in Macon County. He said, can I see it? I said, of course you can. I could hardly contain myself, because this is what I want in all these years. Someone to come aboard and help me save this schoolhouse.
That project is one that is very near and dear to me because it's one of the oldest remaining rural school buildings that were erected during Booker T. Washington's era. And it is a testament to the seriousness that we've always had as a people as it relates to education. And so to have a student over 120 years later assisting in the restoration of that schoolhouse, conducting historic research on it, looking at how can we use advanced technology like laser scanning and photogrammetry, and to support the work that we're doing is really, really amazing.
Being on the ground with the students and seeing each one of the projects is really when it came to life for all of us.
Over the summer, I had the privilege of working with the National Trust and the Hope Crew and developing a digital documentation workshop for the Armstrong School to help bring a public face to the site.
The importance of this site, it cannot be overstated. When you think about enslavement and the legacies of enslavement, you can look at those things that are oppressive experiences for African Americans, and you can look at things that were joyful experiences for African Americans. And what I like to focus on is this idea of Black self-determination coming out of enslavement, emancipation, Reconstruction, Jim Crow. And if our stories and our history is going to be mainstream history, then it starts with places like this and documenting places like this, because this is our history.
The schoolhouse almost got torn down. They kept saying that this old building is an eyesore, but I knew it was a historic building. I knew it.
The National Register of Historic Places is a nationally stewarded program that is really a tool for sites to lock into grant opportunities and also preserve the written history of the site and the physical landscape. We really do recognize the National Register as an important way to preserve a site. And instead of just focusing on the Armstrong School, which is what a lot of energy, importantly, has been put towards, we're looking at this National Register nomination as an entire district. The contributing features to the district are the school, the cemetery, and the church building.
I told him just the other week, I said, I want this to become a reality before I leave here, because you know I'm 73 years young, and I really want to see my baby. I want to see my baby saved.
Working with the whole crew this summer helped me personally understand what I wanted out of architecture, out of my career in the future. The community is important to me because it takes a village. You can try to do everything on your own, but at the end of the day, nothing's stronger than a group or a community itself. If you have a strong community, a strong environment, I believe personally that you can thrive through all obstacles that come your way.
The Digital Documentation Fellowship seems to have touched each one of the fellows in a very different way. We've seen them grow, evolve, get professional training, find new avenues of interest, and really see themselves in the movement. Many of our fellows are interested in exploring advanced degrees, master's degrees in architecture and preservation now as well too. Entrepreneurship, they got a taste of what it was like to lead teams and to work independently, and they really see that as a part of their future and path now as well.
You know, the fellows have worked so hard to design projects that are benefiting their community, and I'm hoping that that continues after we leave. We've given them the tools and allow them to make those connections locally with people doing preservation, and we're hoping not only can we assist in that continuing, but that they will personally continue the work after we leave.
This fellowship made a nice leeway into doing Black studies for UT Austin, because they saw that and they saw like my portfolio from my digital media arts program, and they're like, wow, we want you on board. We don't see or know the historical Black sites that have been forgotten. I want to bring those lights and the sites to fruition. Yeah.
I think this fellowship would affect my career and study in a good way, because with my study architecture, you kind of design buildings to last forever. A lot of my designs moving forward would probably be a lot more sustainable, a lot more easy to preserve, and a lot more, and I'll just think about the culture and the people around the building as a whole.
Working with Hope Crew actually makes me feel like I'm wanted, honestly, and with Hope Crew working with different HBCUs to try to get them to look more into historic preservation, I feel like it's a great opportunity. During this fellowship, it also gave me a different perspective of what architecture is about. It's not just about like buildings, like you can do more. You can, instead of designing new buildings, you can help the existing buildings or even land that's there.
Historic preservation means to me the ability to save historic sites and historic events. I feel really honored to be able to do these projects with the Hope Crew and everyone, especially in Tallahassee, where I'm from, just to add to the history, recorded history of the city. So that way, no one's history is lost.
After obtaining my bachelor's degree here at Tuskegee, Bachelor's of Architecture, I'm planning on thinking about my master's in historic preservation. After that, I want to obtain my licensure in architecture and open my own firm, help developing the community around me, making it stronger and better for the future.